everybody, welcome to yet another video. This one today is the Anest Iwata, well they're both actually Anest Iwatas, Anest Iwata W50, which is the Kiwami version, the 1.3, and we're pitting that up against the Anest Iwata LPH80, the vulnerable LPH80. Now the LPH80 is a 1.2 and the Kiwami is, I think I just said, is a 1.3. So they're near as damn it. They don't make the LPH80 in a 1.3, so I can't do like for like. Although these things are interchangeable, the tips and that are interchangeable with these two. One is a side cup gun, the Kiwami is a side cup gun, as you will notice, and the LPH80 is a top cup gun. The bodies are very similar. You know, they look more or less the same. They're more or less the same sort of size, but obviously one has, as I just said, a side cup as opposed to a top cup. Also the controls are slightly different, and by that I mean the adjustment for the fluid. I think the fan control is actually the same, but adjustment for the fluid is different on the LPH80 compared to the Kiwami. So I did this video because when I first used the Kiwami, when I first got it, and this, I think this is a Japan only gun, saying that I got it from Painting Tools Japan. I do mention them when I buy something from them, and this is where I got it from. I got it from Painting Tools Japan. I'm not affiliated to them in any way. I do buy it just like anybody else, but people often ask where I get them from, especially something like this, which is a bit different, so that's where I get it from. I'll try and put a link in the description. I'll certainly put a link in the description to their Instagram page, which is how I buy things, and I'll put a link to their eBay page as well, so that you can see it there if that's what you want. So as I say, I think this is Japan only, or certainly Asia only, this little gun. And at the time when I first got hold of it and I used it, I was stunned. I was going to say stunned. Stunned might be a bit too harsh a word, but certainly enthralled. That's the word I'm looking for, because it is such a fiery, as you can see here, it's such a fiery little gun. Compared to the LPH50, which is more or less the same body. In fact, I think it probably is the same body. Compared to the LPH50, which isn't available up to 1.3, the LPH50 only goes up to 1.0, which I do have. This thing is like a, you know, like a firecracker compared to a damp squid. Really, it's really different. And at the time, I was a little bit annoyed, again is probably the wrong word. I was a little bit amazed really that we couldn't get a gun like this officially in the UK, because it's as if they'd been hiding it from us. Now I know this gun hasn't been out for ages, but it's been out quite a while, about 3 years I think, maybe even 4 years, and we've had the LPH80 for years and years. And you know, I definitely think there's a place for a gun like this, because it's, as I say, it's an absolute hose compared to the LPH80. Now hopefully you will see, and you will see at the end, the finish on both these guns is really impeccable. They both atomise superbly fine, which is the whole idea of it, but they go about it in a completely different way really. The only similarity that they've got is they both use air to propel the material, and that's it really. Otherwise, you know, there's nothing really similar to each other in the way they work at all. So the one we're using at the moment, which is the Kiwami W50, they also make a W50, a Bisho, which is a 1.2 version. And that, again, actually I'll put a link in the description, because I did a spray out video. It's just spray patterns of the LPH50, the LPH80, this one, and the W50 1.2, the Bisho version. And you'll see the difference, the different patterns and the sizes of the pattern, which will probably explain it better. But that again is a little bit different to these two, but both of them are are much more of a hose compared to the LPH80. The LPH80 is a much more sanitized tool. Now, if that's what you want, if you're doing things like scale models, and I know quite a few people that do scale models actually watch the channel, because I get quite a lot of messages on Instagram, some on Facebook, and indeed some on YouTube sometimes, from people, and that's what they do. They do scale models, and these sort of guns appeal to people that are doing scale models. Now, obviously, by the very word scale, there's lots of different scale sizes of models. So if you're doing, like, I don't know, 1/6 scale models, then you're going to need a gun that puts out much more material than someone that's doing, like a 1/60th scale model or something like that. And I have no idea whether they're proper scales, but you get what I'm saying, as to what somebody would want. So with these two guns, if you're doing any smaller parts, I would opt probably for the LPH80, and there's a few reasons for that. One is it's much more controlled, puts out less material, but another big advantage of it over the Kiwami is that it uses quite a bit less air. Now, I haven't actually got the figures. I haven't done my homework. I should have done. I'm looking on my notes, and I haven't put it down, but I'm guessing it's around about probably about another 50% more air with the Kiwami than it is with the LPH80. So a lot of people who do scale models will use airbrushes, so they have relatively small compressors. So I would recommend the LPH80 for the guys with the smaller compressors that don't need to put out so much material. But if you do the larger scale models and you've got a compressor that's got a bit more oomph, I mean, these we're not talking loads of air. We're probably talking about 4.5 CFM for the Kiwami, as opposed to, I think it's 2.2 CFM for the LPH80. Incidentally, the LPH50 with the E2 cap is 1.8 CFM, so that's even less. That would be like half, actually a bit less than half of the Kiwami version. So I appreciate that if you haven't got a lot of air, the LPH80, which we're using now, would be much more appealing. But you can see this is on, both these are on full fan, full fluid, and you can see instantly a couple of things. One is the lack of overspray, although I must say, I did put a caption on the screen, the second coat, according to my notes, the second coat of the with the Kiwami version, the W50 Kiwami, I forgot to put the fans on, so that always makes it look as if there's more overspray anyway, because none of it's being taken away. So this is with the fans on, but you can immediately see that there's much less overspray. So if you are a scale model guy, and I know quite a few people do scale models actually indoors with a small extraction unit, doing it all properly, but still within a confined space, then maybe the LPH, well, definitely the LPH80 would be the gun to go for. If you're someone like me that does motorcycle stuff and mainly larger stuff with bigger surface areas, then the Kiwami is much better. And I go back to my original test of the Kiwami, where I was whining about not being able to get something like this in the UK, because if you want a small gun that puts out a lot of material, it's absolutely ideal. It really is a cracking gun, and it give me the best finish I could have ever have got once when I first used it on a bike tank I was doing for someone. It gave me an absolute superb finish. I couldn't have wanted anything better. And I was using a cheap U-Pole clear coat, which likes plenty on there, because it doesn't have much flow. So if you can get a good, relatively thick is the wrong word, but a good coat of clear, it allows it to flow out enough to give you a really smooth surface. and that was easily obtainable with the Kiwami, where you have to work harder at it with the LPH80. But having said that, with the LPH80, if you use a better quality clear coat, so one that flows out better, you don't need to put such a thick film on, and that allows you to get superb finishes anyway. This was both with a U-Pole 2081. Normally I use 2080, but I have got 2081 as well, which I find that actually flows a little bit better. The hardener's the same. This is a fast hardener. The temperature when we were doing it, or when I was doing this, there's no we, temperature when I was doing this was, I think it was 20 degrees Celsius. I just looked at my notes. 20 degrees Celsius, and we warmed the clear coat up in both cases up to 34 degrees Celsius. You'll see in the when you see me filling up the gun at the start, you'll see the thermometer 34 degrees Celsius, which is about I'll put myself on the spot now, about 90 Fahrenheit, something like, no, probably about 92 Fahrenheit. Yeah, it is somewhere around there anyway for you guys in the US. But we're still warming it up. What I'm trying to say is we're still warming it up, even though the conditions are quite warm. But you can see, as I say, you can see we're using the LPH80. You see the two spray outs on the right there. These things are totally chalk and cheese different. The Kiwami is actually cheaper, well, in the UK anyway. I say in the UK, obviously I've already said that you can't buy it in the UK, but if you buy it and get it imported, you may have to pay duty, then it still works out cheaper than an LPH80. So it's a real fireball of a gun. So if you want a small gun that will get you into confined places but is able to put out quite a lot of material when needed, then that's the gun to go for. The pressure is 1.0 bar is recommended, and that's what I use the LPH80 at. Perfectly at home with base coat and with clear coat at that, and gives you very, very little overspray. Whereas the Kiwami is recommended 1.5 bar. I tried it at that, it was absolutely superb at that. You may want to, if you want it to just give you that little bit of an edge, you may want to whack it up by, 0.1 of a bar, but it really doesn't need loads and loads of pressure. But it does, because coupled with that higher pressure and more air, and the more air consumption, it means that it does draw much more from the compressors. Sorry if you can hear a bit of background noise, but we've got a hailstorm just going on, and it's whacking against the window, which I wasn't anticipating, but I'm nearly to the end now, so I might as well carry on. So here are the two final tanks anyway, and you can see that the finish, this is off the gun, nothing's been touched, nothing's been polished or anything. I'm trying to leave everything for at least 2 days. This is 2 days afterwards, and you can see the finish is absolutely superb on both of these guns. You won't want. So if you want a fireball of a gun that put plenty of material on for the bigger items, go for the W50 Kiwami. If you want to take it nice and sedately and you haven't got loads and loads to do, then the LPH80 is the one to go for. But both absolutely cracking guns, thoroughly recommended, and they won't break the bank. Cheers guys, thanks for watching as always. Cheers, bye bye.